gave you more than I gave to myself. You had me on a shelf, but now I'm somewhere else. I was bending, breaking, lost in your storm. Now I'm a hurricane in my purest form. You tried to play me like a fool, had me down in my worth. Nah, I flipped the script on you, reborn from the dirt. You thought I stayed down? Nah, new mindset, I'm putting me first. This ain't no apology, this my reign. No more bowing down, I'm done with the games. Toxic love, no, I broke that spell. I'm the villain in your story, I wrote you hell. Messy goddess, fierce, wild, unleashed, untamed, not mild. Messy goddess, feel the fire in my eyes. No chains hold me, I cut all ties. Messy goddess, wild, free.
This is the Mediocre Black Woman Podcast, the space where we side-eye perfectionism, embrace our humanity, and laugh through the chaos. Girl, trust me, you're in the right place. Hey y'all, I'm Thea, your host here at the Mediocre Black Woman Podcast. I've spent over a decade working in tech, leading learning and development projects, developing content for execs, and running corporate and consumer podcasts. So yeah, I'm highly qualified, just an all-around baddie. Let's keep it real. But here's the thing. I've spent my whole life as a high achiever, doing the most and still hitting those walls we know too well. Being overlooked, underestimated, and overworked. Like my C+ work is somebody else's A++. And don't even get me started on having my ideas taken or being spoken over in meetings. Now, what really pushed me to start this show, though, was Kamala's loss in the election. It triggered something deep in me and in so many other high-achieving Black women I know. Seeing one of the most qualified candidates still not be enough for some people was a gut punch because it mirrors our experiences. So this is a podcast for us, for the women who are tired of carrying the world and still being told we're too much or not enough. It's a space to take the cape off, laugh through the chaos, and just be. So girl, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Okay, so I'm here with Ashley Boyd. Ashley is a healer in her own right. Ashley, can you introduce yourself and tell people about what it is that you do? Because I feel like you have such a depth of work and you're literally kind of in the space that we're in of healing, of reframing, of integrating the things that we're learning. So why don't you tell everybody about yourself and how they can access you?
Hello, everybody. My name is Ashley. I am 30 years old. I am a mother to one son. My healing journey, like most that I know, started in massage and it integrated with energy work. And, from there, I just kind of ventured into all different types of spaces from herbal and then being guided into doing readings and then from there being guided into Reiki. It was very much like a one foot in front of the other type of deal. And from there, I have been a Reiki practitioner and a reader for about 5 or 6 years now. In a couple months, I'm a published author. I have decks that I have created. And I also do readings and Reiki in person as I currently reside in Arizona. Even with all of those things, the focal point for me has always been healing. Like the poetry books I publish dive into the different aspects of healing, more so the aspects that aren't always publicly talked about. My Reiki and my readings are very similar in that nature. They're very healing based, shadow work based, getting to the root of everything so that, the way that they talk about manifestation, this life, this glamorous life that you want to live, it doesn't just come from writing in a journal or, doing rituals, like how that saying, faith without works is dead. And you very much have to make sure that you're doing the work in order to sustain those things. But ultimately, with the work that I do, my biggest goal is helping women specifically to build a better relationship with their body, because over time, I've learned with the work that I do, women tend to be a lot more disconnected than they realize. So by helping them through the trauma, through womb trauma and different things like that, it helps them to be able to reconnect with their
Mm.
body on a level that they were not previously at.
Listen, and I love that you said this because, okay, first of all, amazing background, and second of all, I didn't know you did decks, and we need to talk about that because yes, I want to purchase some of your decks. But the beautiful thing is that people, what I didn't realize when it came to spirituality was how much importance it was to like not just focus on your spiritual being, like your meditation, your prayer practices, your journaling, but to also really get into your physical body and ground yourself in the 3D, right? Because some of us, we want to live up here so bad and stay up here. And it's nice to stay up here. It feels good to stay up here. It feels like great to just be in that. But you have to pair those things to really bring down what it is that you want. And so I love that that is the basis of your work. And it really focuses on all facets when it comes to healing, because it's not just the up here things. It's also the grounding that needs to happen. So that's beautiful. That is beautiful. And a lot of us are so disconnected from our bodies. So disconnected from our bodies. Okay, so I'm really excited because we're gonna talk about kind of like what you said, like the things that we just don't really talk about publicly, right? Like we wouldn't dare share this kind of tea about our community, right? And like some of the things that we go through. So I feel like this is really juicy. And this is kind of our first The Quiet Part Out Loud, where we talk about your experiences with Black women in friendship. So you want to share a little bit about what it is that you had reached out to me about?
Of course. So for me, I'd say specifically, a lot of my relationships with Black women started familial, cousins, aunts, mom, grandmothers, and things like that. And while my cousin was like a sister to me, even before my blood sister, we were very close. But as I got older, I noticed, through other areas, there was tension or there was like underlying competition. There were feelings that, she may have gone through, or feelings that it was that I went through and didn't have anybody to talk with them about. And, fast forward into high school, getting to know myself more. I'm the quiet Black girl, is what I was deemed at that time. And I just kept to myself. Even with having friendships, I'd say I had like friendships with other Black women that were God's way of getting me through those spaces that we deal with in high school. But it was like they were never really sustainable. And just even the Black women that I went to school with, it just seemed like there was always this underlying competition. There was these undertones of insecurity, me being the quiet Black girl, and most Black women at that time always being coined as being loud, especially in high school at 7:30 in the morning. And it would just be really bothersome to them how quiet I was. And it was like naturally that just helped me to better observe things. And, as I got older, I noticed myself, I guess maybe it could be a subconscious thing. It could also be, the high school I went to, while it was a lot of Black girls, it was like a mix of everything. There was Indian girls, Hispanic girls, and something in me naturally, I gravitated to a little bit of everything, even though I noticed at some point I gravitated more to Hispanic women. It's just, I don't know, dealing with those things between family and being at school, it's almost kind of like subconsciously there was something in me that felt like there was a barrier there from me really being able to have that relationship with Black women. And then, like, my mom, I'd say now, realizing I'm an ambivert, my mother is more of an introvert. So it was like I couldn't talk about these feelings. I didn't know why it is that I felt this way towards family, or why it is that other Black women felt this way towards me. And you know, eventually I ended up kind of being in my own space, going to myself. So I didn't have to deal with any of these feelings. I was always in my own lane. And it wasn't until that I got older, all of those feelings, all those emotions, everything that I could never get an answer for started to come up within my
Mhm.
friendships. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? Like, why am I feeling this? Or, just dealing with the space, the reality of having to lose friendships because I'm not understanding why these things are coming up. And for me, it wasn't until like the most recent friendship that I have now, my best friend currently, where I was able to be vulnerable and honest about all of these feelings and emotions and insecurities that it is that I deal with.
Mhm.
And even though she hadn't dealt with them personally, she's been very understanding about it. And, just even with the conversation that me and you had, and you were like, dealing with jealousy is a very normal emotion, but it's like the way that it's portrayed, especially in spirituality, it's like, it's not. You need to stuff it away. You need to deal with it, and you need to make sure that you can be there for everybody else. But it's like, I feel like when it comes to dealing with jealousy, the one thing that a lot of people don't speak about is how we're so quick to want to put on a happy face and put those feelings to the side to be there for everybody else. But in that moment, your spirit needs you to tend to you. Your spirit needs you to be there for you. But it's also like, okay, well, everybody's telling me I need to deal with these emotions and these feelings alone. So
Mhm.
I don't know how. So it's kind of like now you're just left with everybody wants to be kumbaya, but they only want to be kumbaya if it's all love and light. And it's like, even as I'm sitting here thinking that, like, just even within the Black community, we say how badly we hate the love and light aspect, but it's like, if there's emotions like that we're dealing with that we cannot handle, because Black women,
Mhm.
we have all dealt with jealousy and envy and
Yes.
insecurities directly, well, a lot of us within our own home, within mother wounds. And it's like, how are we ever going to be able to talk about, even if it comes up as like a moment and it's not something you have to work through? How can we ever get past that if we don't talk about it? Because we're all, oh, you got to be high vibes, you got to be good. But
Mhm.
everybody's being forced to deal with it all alone. How are we supposed to release that strong Black woman rhetoric if we're still being forced to deal with emotions that we don't
Mm.
understand by
That's juicy
ourselves?
because, like, that's so real. Like, we all have dealt with envy. We've all dealt with jealousy. We've all felt it in ourselves or felt it from someone else. And in our homes, like, in our homes, yes, like in our own homes. And I guess, like, the understanding that, we carry it all ourselves, that's what, makes us go and retreat. And that whole, like, love and light conversation of, like, when it comes to spirituality, we talked about just now how everybody wants to stay up here, but nobody wants to do the grounding work. I feel like it's the same thing with everybody wants to be in the positivity and the love and the light, but nobody wants to address the darkness. And then we get disgusted by our darkness because we've never integrated those things, right? And the dark doesn't exist without the light, and the light doesn't exist without the dark. And so I just have, first of all, commend you for being able to even be vulnerable with your friend, because that is where the first step occurs, right? Where you're like, you know what? I'm going to take this risk. Actually, I made a post about what my best friend, because I spent the week with her recently. And we did a lot of like spiritual work ourselves. And we just did more of our day to day routine together because I'm a quality time person. I like to just be with you. Like, we might go grocery shopping, we might do laundry, we might clean up the house. Like, I just like to be with you. That's my thing. And she and I did a lot of work. But what was so interesting is somebody commented on my post saying, how hard it is to really build friendships. And I was like, it is. But the thing is that we have to like put ourselves in a position to take a risk, because we'll never know if somebody can even handle our big emotions if we don't even try with them first.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I told you right before you and I talked, I spoke with Leo Elaine, who is a writer on Substack too, and she teaches women how to scale their businesses with ease, with rest. And we touched on some touchy things too around, sometimes you come into these spaces and, we're so used to being the only one that we then start to try to size each other up. And then it becomes this like competition. And we've just naturally, systemically have been pitted against each other, So how do we even like go about starting to change that? Like we take risks, right? Like you did with your friend. And I know you said she didn't know, like she had never dealt with some of these things before, but she was still understanding. Like what about what she said or how she approached you or cared for you made you feel like understood in those moments?
Well, first, I would definitely say just having the conversation, she reassured me, like, um, I'm trying to think of how it is that it went exactly. Just, I would say for sure, it was a lot of reassurance, like letting me know, um, well, I haven't dealt with this. I understand that this is what you're dealing with and what you're going through. And I commend you. That was like the biggest thing, like how you just said. She was like, I commend you for even being open, honest, and sharing this with me and just reassuring me that everything was fine. And I'd say the biggest thing has just been uplifting me because the one thing that I realized when I started my podcast back in 2022, and one of my episodes was I would release myself from being the strong fan, and it was kind of like in that moment with sharing those things with her, it made me realize I could not be the only one to uplift myself anymore. I could not be the one constantly holding myself accountable with my weaknesses, my greatness, my goals, and just really being entirely vulnerable with her so that she sees all sides of me, because it's like you can't just always be on top and
Mm-hmm.
expect your friends to be able to be there for you, because if you're just constantly wearing a facade, they don't know where it is that you need help. They don't know where you need a little extra upliftment. They don't know what your soft spots may be and what boundaries may need to be set. And I feel like too that was like a really huge thing, is just when we had certain conversations, her saying, do you have the space for me to talk about this, knowing certain things that I dealt with, or just her honoring my honoring my boundaries with certain things, and us, creating a space to where if we have to ever talk about something uncomfortable, like we have our own little emoji that we use. And when we send it, we know like, hey, I don't know if you're doing something right now. I need you to hold space for me. And then kind of like from there, we communicate, if we have the space, or just even prepare or be like, hey, I don't need your response right now. I just need to get this off my chest. So taking those little measures, and I feel like with me taking this last about a year or so, just really being vulnerable on this level, it's even helped her because, she's had her moments where she's realized like, that she needs upliftment, that she needs people to check on her. It's made her realize how much more vulnerable she is. And it's like these layers are peeling back, and there's things that she's finding on them under them that she didn't even realize. So it was kind of like, if I didn't take that risk with trusting with her in something that was so vulnerable to me, she may not have been able to slowly feel that sense of comfort to let her layers go, or just let her shell break away, and not have to feel like, oh, she needs to hurry up and pick the pieces up again and protect herself and make sure that she's covered.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I love like the tools that you guys created, like those things, because sometimes, yeah, like you want to share, but you have to make sure that we, both have the space to even talk about that right now. And again, taking that risk and saying like, I am struggling with this. I do need help with this, and you see the person soften and you start to soften, and then it becomes almost more natural to start sharing that way, um, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of times in our friendships with each other, like there's this need to serve or do so much for each other as a friend instead of just being who you are in the friendship sometimes as the means to connection, you know? And I think we've like really derived our value often from the things that we do. And, you know, when it comes to friendships, like sometimes it's just who you are is enough and showing up as who you are is enough. You don't have to do all these things for me to be your friend, right? Like we have to just, I feel like sometimes start there because then it's like, am I attracted to being this person's friend because of what they do for me or because of who they are and their values and how they treat me and how I treat them, you know, and what the nature of our friendship is, right? And so I think like some of that also we have to step back from being so eager to like do to prove to be, you know, to be in friendship with each other. Mm.
I know one thing a friend recently said, and I said this to my friend as well. My other friend, she's polyamorous, and she was like, "Look, this may sound crazy, this may sound insane, but she said a lot of us don't realize." She said, even if there isn't an official relationship or there's like a conversation surrounding dating, she said in some capacity we date our friends before we date other people.
We do.
And she was like, you put in that time, you talk with them, you hang out with them, you get to know them, you learn, your friends' love languages, you learn their strengths, you learn their weaknesses. And I feel like when she said that at first, I was like, but it's like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, okay, I can definitely understand that. And like, even with my friend, I feel like that's the one thing too that has helped her to be able to observe and look at her other friendships and not so much as a comparison, but just reassuring her, like, I'm not asking for too much and I'm not asking, like, it's not like I am asking for people to go above and beyond. This is what I need to feel healthy and happy and secure within my friendships. And I don't feel like that's too much. And I feel like sometimes people feel like, oh, my friends are doing too much. It's only doing too much but when a man or another woman or any partner becomes involved, it's a completely different story.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when you're constantly needing your friends for this or for that, or you're needing their time or energy, that's not too much.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. Because oh my gosh, yeah, we were literally having the same parallel conversations today. But it's true. Like we date our friends first, and I was mentioning on the conversation about this coach, Dave Elliott. He talked about something called the second date formula, where if you're going on a date with somebody on a first date, your second date formula, basically get another date, is to really just get to know the person and treat them like a friend first. And then like, really just assess them and like, who are they? Not like just because they don't add up to like what you're looking for doesn't mean they shouldn't be valued. And so it's like dating is friendship too. And your friendships prepare you for relationships because if you can get through difficult stuff with your friends, when it comes down to dating, I feel like you can get difficult stuff with the people that you're romantically involved with, And so, and to be honest, there's something that attracts us to our friends too, right? So it's the same thing, Like my friend, she is this like just beautiful spirit, and she wants to help everybody where she can. Like she's, people that she doesn't even know, I saw her stop a few different times while we were together just to like help people that she saw that were in need, like that's just who she is. And she's a great mother and she's a great friend and, she's wise beyond her years. And it's like something attracted me to her. There was something there, And so I just feel like just hearing you make the like comparison out loud again, I'm like, like you get it, It's like if you can't do this, then you can't even hold friendships and you can't hold vulnerability and space with friendships. Why are we looking for romantic partners if we haven't figured out or mastered like friendships yet, That's huge. That's really huge. So let's talk about this concept of kind of like being the only in some of these spaces and how that can kind of bleed over into our friendships with other Black women.
Whew, so this is funny because I was literally just having this conversation in my head earlier and I'm like, all right, Ashley, save it for when you talk later. But for me, and the cousin I mentioned in the beginning that I said that's like a sister to me. It was me like sitting back and reflecting on the aspects of my upbringing versus hers. For me, my upbringing was I was more family oriented. I didn't always get to hang out with my friends. Like I talk with them and text them on the phone and stuff, maybe hang out, but it was like my friends were kind of like restricted to just school. So with my cousin, the one thing that I noticed is um how her mom handled friendships, just how it is that she handles the conversations, how she approaches things, even going as far as like building up her self confidence in that aspect. But one of the things that has been like on a replay in my head these last couple weeks, there's this camp that she used to go to. One was called Simba, Safe in My Brother's Arms, and the other one was called Simsa, Safe in My Sister's Arms.
Okay.
And it was pretty much a camp where little black boys and little black girls could go to. They do different types of activities. They do like peer relationship building type of things. And just like how for her, that shaped her relationship with Black women, that allowed her to be able to see the good, the bad, the ugly, and all of that within her peers, so that when she was handling them in those spaces, it wasn't from a space of envy or a space of jealousy or just low confidence. It was from a space of love and understanding.
Mhm.
Whereas with me, a lot of my interactions, not so much friendships, but just with Black women that were acquaintances, it was me dealing with being bullied. It was me dealing with being envied or dealing with jealousy from them, or just me being picked on from being the quiet one. And it was kind of like when I realized that, because it's like how I told you the vulnerable conversation I had with my friend, like I would beat myself up for having to deal with these feelings and emotions for all these years. And I'm just now really figuring it out. But then I had to step back and I'm like, girl, first of all, you and your cousin had completely different upbringings.
Mhm.
The space and the way that she experienced being around Black women, you didn't get to experience that.
Mhm.
And it was kind of like as I got older and I'm like, oh, I'm not a kid anymore. I don't got to hold back. I don't got to shut my mouth. That just made certain people dislike me even more, because now it's, oh, she talks too much. Oh,
Mhm.
she doesn't know how to stay in her place. And what's funny, me and my friend were talking about this the other day.
Mm.
And I said, we were talking about, Black women and just Black family and therapy. I said, the issue is that they don't want solutions. It's okay to gossip about your problems, but talking to a therapist is a stretch.
Mm.
There's no solutions in gossip. There's solutions in therapy, and therapy comes with that accountability. And I was just kind of like, really tying all that in. I feel like that has also in a way had an impact. And I'd say for me, just being completely honest, because it's came up, a lot of the Black women that I dealt with being bullies around me are now spiritualists. And I'm just looking like, I know everybody has to go through their healing. Everybody has to go through their own journey. But I'm just kind of like, I don't know, my ego is like, feels slighted, like, dang, you the same one that was bullying me and now you're all loving, light, doing readings and stuff. And I'm like, that's a little bit triggering.
Mm.
Especially like from me, like even when I take my ego out of the aspect, I'm like, there's still undertones of mean girl there, even though me and you are now in the same space. So I'm just kind of like, it's crazy.
That's tricky because, like, for real, on some real shit, like, sometimes people try to use spirituality to keep other people out of certain spaces. And that is the type of, like, world that we kind of live in. Like, not all spiritualists or all pastors, all spiritual folk are not trying to really call people in. It's more of like to keep people out or to call people out. And so I could see how that would be triggering. and still some of that mean girl vibes underneath there. I'm sorry that is even a thing. But that's so interesting. I also just want to go back to something because I mentioned I had gotten bullied too growing up. I got bullied for all kind of stuff, but I just remember specifically like one of the things that came up around my blackness was when I would read out loud in class and people would say that I read like a white girl, and I was like, what the fuck does that even mean? I read and speak with proper English. I don't, I grew up in Inglewood, South Central LA. So, I don't know like what I was supposed to sound like, if that makes sense, And so, I don't know. That's also been a really interesting factor of like, when it comes to these friendships, of people having these expectations of what your blackness should look like in proximity to other Black women and in friendship. And I'm curious, how did you like start to deal with that when people were like, oh, she talks too much, oh, she was the quiet one and now she's like loud? But like when you were getting that, like, she's the quiet one, how did you kind of deal with that? Because it was like a challenge to your blackness in some ways, even though again we're all different facets.
I would definitely say it didn't really bother me
Mhm.
because if anything, I took pride in my quietness because I'd say in some capacity, even if I didn't have like the correct terminology for it, I was aware of my spirituality at a very young age, and I knew my quietness is what helped me to observe who and who not befriend.
Mhm.
And while I'm just kind of like, I don't care how much it bothers y'all, I'm not going to be able to tell who I can be vulnerable with, who can see all sides of me if I'm busy being loud, trying to befriend everybody. And what's crazy is my quietness is essentially what allowed people to trust in me. Because at that time, I think I started writing poetry when I was 14. And me writing poetry for people helped me to see sides of them that a lot of people didn't get to see.
Mhm.
And so I knew in certain aspects, the certain like people that were loud or rambunctious, like, oh, just I wouldn't say loud, I'll just say rambunctious, more so rambunctious. It allowed me to see a side of them that most people didn't get to see. But it was like for me, even at 14, I was very, you know, you should journal, you should find something to do that makes you happy. Like the same stuff that talk about and preach now, I was preaching and saying at 14 years old.
Mhm.
So just trying to get them to see life in a different light. But it's also like if you are rambunctious and your friends are also rambunctious, you changing or shifting is gonna look weird to them. It's gonna make you lose friends. So I feel like even in a way, some of those women that were rambunctious didn't even necessarily want to be. It was just they knew in order to survive or get through the ups and downs of high school that they needed to continue. Well, what's that word? They needed to continue inserting themselves with a specific crowd. Whereas with me, I was never a part of one specific friend group. I was friends with everybody. I was friends with some of the white kids. I was friends with some of the popular kids. I was friends with the Hispanics. There was times that I had to just be okay with being by myself because my mama did not play that. I don't know their parents. I don't know how they are. Like, no, you cannot hang out with them.
Mhm.
So I had to, just as a lesson I'm learning with me being older, I had to learn to be okay with being quiet.
Mhm. That makes sense because then you can observe and you can see for yourself. And I mean, I had this I had this friend back home, Mama Sharon. She says empty barrels make the most noise. And I was like, that one. Mm. I never forgot that one. She has a bunch of sayings, but that was my favorite one, I think. The other one was, I'm gonna go see a man about a dog. I'm like, What is that? I know what it means now, but I was like, what is this dog? Who's this dog? But yeah, that's so true. Being quiet, being introspective, and again, like I keep saying this, I have to commend you because at that age to realize, to be observant and to pay attention. And I mean, I think I was kind of unintentionally forced into that because I was bullied. So I was just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna watch what everybody got going on. Um, but you do get to really see people and you get to discern more of like who to spend your time with or who to, kind of distance yourself from. I like that you turned to like poetry early on. You just like you've remembered the things that you did as a child and you brought that forward with you. That's huge because they say like when you're younger you're closer to the spiritual world, because a lot of us forget who
Mm-hmm.
we are as we like grow up and like move on. So I don't know, I just feel like there's something powerful about the fact that you're still doing some of the things that you started doing today. So I'm curious, okay, I want to talk about a little bit of the differences because, as people who have both kind of like been to ourselves and kind of been, because I'm an ambivert too, where like, yeah, I can turn it on, but I do recharge very well by being by myself, or like it just depends on the situation. So I hear people say a lot of times, I hear women say, I don't have any friends. I don't need friends, blah,
Mm.
blah, blah. I hate that, right? So what is this fine line? Because I feel like there is a very fine line between self-protection and self-isolation. And it seems like you have been a master of that with like, knowing who to lean into and then when to lean out and be by yourself. So like, can you talk a little bit about like that fine line of I'm protecting myself for good reason, for good cause, and I'm just isolating because I'm hurt and I don't want to allow any friendships in.
Um, I would say it's crazy. I can recognize those through those periods in my life. I would say I dealt with that, of course, when I was younger. Around 18, 19 was when I was able to have a little bit more freedom, get out the house, experienced my first, I guess, quote unquote, adult relationship with my high school sweetheart again. And then I had that point again of isolation when I was pregnant with my son, keeping to myself. Got back out when I was in massage school, started mixing and mingling again. And then probably like about 3 years ago, I had to deal with the space of isolation. And one of the biggest things I would have to say that I recognized was me, like I said, me needing to learn I was never an extrovert, nor I was an introvert. I was an ambivert.
Mhm.
And doing that really helped me to learn that balance. It helped me to recognize when I was integrating myself with certain people because of what they call it these days, especially being neurodivergent myself, dopamine fixes.
Mhm.
Like, are you interacting with people because you genuinely want to, or are you interacting with people because you're bored or because you need dopamine or whatever that looks like? And all of that too, I'd say essentially helped me become I've already always been in tune with my body, but it helped me become more in tune with my nervous system.
Mm.
Um, because it helped me to recognize too when in my body when people were and were not for me. Because when I was younger, like I always say to this day, I had this sixth sense. Like I would tell my cousin, she would have a friend and I'd be like, I don't like her. She's like, oh my God, Ashley, you just met her. You don't, I'm like, I don't like her. And it would always come out about why it is I didn't like a certain friend or why I didn't like a certain person. So now it's kind of like the roles are reversed. I'm having to listen to my ancestors. I'm having to listen to my body when it comes to people that I need to give space from or people that I need to feel a sense of comfortability in setting boundaries for, especially to being an ambivert in a spiritual space because everybody is very much I want to be friends with everybody. Let's do this. let's get readings from this person, let's do rituals with that person. And I'm like, baby, I don't know about y'all, but my ancestors don't play that.
Exactly.
They don't play that at all. I even like I would say some time ago, there was someone that I was doing that I had did a reading for, and just wanting to get together, and my ancestors was like, mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
And it wasn't until later down the line, like months down the line, that I was like, oh, that's why.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is essentially to my ancestors, and I building a stronger relationship with them is what has allowed me to learn that discernment between the healthy boundaries of when I need to isolate
Mm-hmm.
and when I just need to intentionally be by myself. And I would say that's like something that I'm still in the process of learning to integrate. Because just like how I was telling you about me doing Reiki and readings in person, it's that I'm no longer in the cocoon, but I'm not fully shed of it. So
Yes.
I still need to be mindful of when I need to step back and recharge. The only thing is I can't just go ghost and not text friends for weeks at a time. I have to be like, hey, I'm just recharging, or hey, I'll be right back. I need to do this and do that. So I would definitely say my building that relationship with my ancestors has played a huge role in me learning discernment between being by myself and isolating myself.
Hmm. I'm going to say this again because the audience is going to get tired of hearing me say this, but I'm not going to get tired of saying it because it's true. I need Black people to tap back in who the fuck they are, because yeah, your ancestors, your spiritual court, like they're not going to lead you astray, and when you said about not letting certain people give you readings, I had a friend who sent me and another friend a group chat and said, hey, set your intention because I'm gonna do a collective message for us. And I was like, no, thank you. Because I was just starting the practice of reading for myself, right? And I was like, no, I don't want anybody in my energy right now. And I didn't even need to like hesitate. I kind of, it just came through so strong. And I was like, it's nothing personal. I was like, I just don't need you in my energy right now. Like, that's for me to do right now. I'm reading myself. I don't need you to do that for me, you know? If that changes, I'll let you know, but I don't need that, and I know which people to like go to who are authorized, to be able to do that, so
Mhm.
it's just so interesting that you said that, because it's so true. Like, you can't let everybody up in your energy, think about it like a spiritual 6 feet, y'all, like a spiritual quarantine. like it goes 6 feet from me and my energy and my, because yeah, like I know spirituality has become more like and more popularized and glamorized and all of that, and everybody's into it now, and I just think that we all need to even more so exercise more discernment because yeah, sometimes we're playing with things that we're not even aware of what we're playing with, and so get grounded. I need us to remember who the fuck we are and get back into that, So I appreciate you for saying that because it's so true. It's so true. Everybody want to read for everybody. You can't read for everybody, and they can't read for you. That's why I always structure my collective messages as like, if this it hits for you, because they told me, they were like, you need to share this, and I was like, what? Why y'all want me? Because I didn't want to do that. I was doing them for me, and then they just kind of kept turning more like broad, and I was like, okay, I see why you want me to share this. So if it's for you and it hits you, that's great. But I'm not casting this over. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
you discern what's for you and what's not. And that is what we need to keep doing more and more and more of. Okay. Ashley, this has been really good. This has been really juicy. So I want to ask one more question before you get off of here. Um, what would you say? Because you already shared some stuff that you and your friends do. But for people who are just really like, they're in that space of just, I'm self-isolating because I'm hurt. I don't want to build friendships right now. What would you give them as like one step, just one thing that you would say that they should do to just start to unlearn and unpack that so they can have, move towards having the relationships that they want with their friends and with other people?
Mm, I would say building a relationship with their spirit more, learning self forgiveness. And instead of having the mindset of, I don't want any friends, ask yourself, what lessons did I learn from this? Because so often we zoom in on the hurt that we don't take the chance out to look at the bigger picture of what the lesson is. And it's like it's a quote that I've like lived by like that Bob Marley. I don't remember verbatim, but how he says the truth is that everyone is going to hurt you. You just have to find someone that's worth suffering for.
Mm,
And not so much to say in a sense of staying in a toxic friendship, relationship, or anything, but you got to realize everybody is not perfect. You have to really learn a sense of discernment between if somebody did something that is malicious or somebody did something that they didn't realize how it is that it would hurt you or how it is that it would affect you, and really learning how to better communicate and set boundaries so that people have an understanding how to operate with you in how to operate with you in any capacity, because I feel like the biggest thing that is missing in friendships is boundaries, and that stems from the relationships that with friends that we had in elementary school and middle school and high school. There was so much that us or our friends may have gotten away with that we get older, we realize like, dang, that
mm-hmm.
hurt me. So it's like you have to be able to recognize when certain things are hurting you and stop always deeming yourself as being sensitive and trying to suppress that sensitivity or essentially people pleasing out of fear of losing a friend. Because one thing that I've learned, and it sounds so cliche when you see it online, but it's so true when it hits in real life, is the people that are supposed to be in your life are not going to be offended by what it is that you have to say, by you speaking up for yourself and sharing your feelings, or by you setting your boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And that is literally the honest to God truth. And I feel like those things are what I would say in terms of helping people. And just, I'd say the big one is, again, that forgiveness of self, because naturally it's gonna come. It's normal and it's natural to say I shouldn't, when you start realizing the piece of the puzzle. Oh, I shouldn't have let this person in. I shouldn't have this and I shouldn't have that.
Yeah.
It's all a part of the lesson. You couldn't have known, and you shouldn't feel like you have to be in friendships or relationships in a state of fear or having everybody under a microscope. And that's when that sense of building that relationship with your spirit comes in. Because when you trust in your spirit, when you trust in those things to lead you, it cannot guide you in the wrong
Mm-hmm.
direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm processing. That was because it's just so true. It's like, you know, you're you got to take the risk. You're gonna get hurt because we're all different, and we all have seen the world differently. We're from different places. We're from, like, my best friends are all over, like Florida, Connecticut, like, North Carolina, like, like all over the place, like California. Like, we're all gonna see life very, very differently depending on where we're growing up, what our family dynamic is like, what's going on in our lives right now, like what's happened, in the past. And so, like, we're not always gonna see eye to eye. You're so right. It's all right. So we have to give each other a chance, like you said, be vulnerable and share when something doesn't sit well with us, and have that courage and that strength to take those risks. So, well, I appreciate your wisdom, your insights, and for sharing with us. Where can people find you? We'll also put it in the show notes, but for the audience, where can people find you?
Right now they can find me on Threads. My Threads handle is same as Instagram naturally. It's Brujas to the word TO blunts dot LLC. That's for Instagram and Threads. If any of the listeners are in Arizona, I always put the information on my Instagram and post it. I do in-person readings and Reikis on Friday at a shop called With Love Crystals. She's amazing. She sells different herbs, crystals, herbal blends, and stuff like that. So if people want to vibe with me in person, that's where they can find me in person.
I love that. Thank you for sharing so much.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, sis, that's it for today. Thanks for listening to the Mediocre Black Woman podcast. Remember, you're magic even on your messiest days. Don't forget to share this with your bestie and tell them to share it with their bestie too. See you next time. Take it easy and take care.
I gave you more than I gave to myself. You had me on a shelf, but now I'm somewhere else. I was bending, breaking, lost in your storm. Now I'm a hurricane in my purest form. You tried to play me like a fool.